There are people in this world who carry themselves like mountains. People who seem steady, unshakable, resilient, the kind of souls others automatically lean on without thinking twice. They're the ones who show up when everything falls apart. The ones who stay calm when everyone else is panicking. The ones who say I'm fine even when their world is quietly collapsing inside them. And while everyone sees their strength, almost no one sees the exhaustion behind it. Because being strong is not just something they do. It has become something they must be, not because they're invincible, but because life trained them to pick themselves up, long before anyone ever learned how to pick them up. This script dives deep into the psychology behind people who are tired of being strong all the time. The hidden emotional patterns, the childhood programming, the quiet burnout, and the unspoken truth that even the strongest people carry a breaking point they never talk about. People who are tired of being strong usually started being strong long before they understood what strength even meant. Many of them were the responsible child, the one who grew up too fast, who acted like a tiny adult, in a world where the adults weren't able to show up emotionally. They learned early that crying didn't change anything, that asking for help would only be met with disappointment, that vulnerability was unsafe because it exposed them to pain, shame, or abandonment. So they learned a skill that became their survival tool: emotional containment. They learned how to hold everything inside, how to swallow their emotions, how to show a calm face even when their body felt like it was shaking on the inside. And over time, this containment became their identity. People praised them for being mature, strong, reliable, the one who always keeps it together. But no one asked what this cost them. No one asked how lonely it is to always be the one who holds the world together, while your own inner world quietly crumbles. Psychologically, people who are tired of being strong experience something called hyperindependence, a defense mechanism created by repeated emotional disappointment. When you grow up in an environment where your needs are ignored, invalidated, or mocked, you develop the belief that relying on anyone is a weakness. You learn that needing people leads to pain. So you become self-sufficient, not out of confidence, but out of necessity. You become your own comfort, your own support system, your own everything. At first it feels empowering. It feels like strength. But as you grow older, it starts to feel like a cage. Because while independence is healthy, hyperindependence is isolation disguised as strength. It keeps you from forming close relationships. It keeps you from asking for help even when you desperately need it. And it forces you to carry burdens that were never meant to be carried alone. People who are tired of being strong often carry emotional perfectionism, a deep belief that they must always be okay, always be calm, always be composed. They pressure themselves to never break down, never lose control, never show weakness. They believe that if they fall apart, their world will fall apart with them. This pressure doesn't disappear with age. If anything, it grows heavier. They become the person friends come to for advice, the one who mediates conflicts, the one who takes care of siblings, parents, coworkers, partners. And because they've been strong for so long, people assume they don't need support. They assume the strong one has it all figured out. They assume the strong one is immune to breakdowns. Yet the truth is this: the strong one is often the most fragile person in the room, because they've never truly known what it feels like to be held. Another central psychological factor is emotional suppression, which is different from emotional control. Suppression means the person has taught their brain to ignore their own emotional distress because feeling it is too overwhelming. They don't cry, not because they don't want to, but because their body has learned not to. They don't express frustration because they've been punished or shamed for it in the past. They don't open up because they don't know how to, without feeling exposed or embarrassed. Over time, this suppression leads to emotional numbness, a state where they feel tired more than anything else. Tired, drained, disconnected. They may even start to feel like life is happening in slow motion, as if they're watching themselves go through the motions rather than truly living. This is what emotional exhaustion looks like. Not dramatic breakdowns, but quiet detachment. A sense of emptiness that grows silently, day by day. Many strong people carry something psychologists call role fatigue, the exhaustion that comes from constantly being placed in the same emotional role. For strong people, that role is the caretaker. They're the emotional parent in their family, the reliable friend, the one others depend on. But roles build pressure. Imagine being cast as the same character in every chapter of your life, even when you no longer want that part. Imagine that everyone expects you to always be stable, always be wise, always be generous, always be patient. Eventually, the role stops feeling like a choice and starts feeling like a burden. And once a role becomes a burden, it turns into resentment. Not because they hate helping people, but because they're exhausted from always being the one who helps, and never the one who is helped. They give without receiving. They listen without being listened to. They carry others emotionally while carrying their own pain in silence. And that silence becomes heavy. There's also the psychology of invisible suffering. Strong people often feel guilty for struggling. They convince themselves that their problems are not that bad, that others have it worse, that they shouldn't complain. They dismiss their own feelings to avoid burdening others. But emotional invalidation, even self-inflicted, takes a toll. It teaches the brain that their struggles don't deserve attention or care. So even when they're hurting deeply, they minimize it. They say it's fine, I'm tired, I just need sleep. But it's not sleep they need, it's rest. Rest from expectations. Rest from responsibility. Rest from being the emotional anchor for everyone around them. Strong people also struggle with something known as delayed emotional breakdowns. They won't cry when the problem is happening. They won't panic during crisis. They won't admit stress during chaos. They remain calm, collected, rational. But once everything is over, once things settle, that's when the emotions hit, and they hit hard. Their body collapses from the weight it held. Their mind finally processes what it went through. They cry weeks later, months later, sometimes years later. Not because the pain is new, but because they finally feel safe enough to feel it. But since most people think they handled it so well, no one realizes they're breaking down behind closed doors. They suffer privately because they've never learned how to fall apart in front of anyone else. The psychology of being tired all the time also includes chronic emotional overextension. These individuals stretch themselves thin, saying yes to things they don't have energy for, taking responsibility for problems that aren't theirs, and internalizing guilt for things they didn't cause. They fix things that shouldn't be theirs to fix. They apologize for things they didn't do. They take on emotional labor without being asked, because they're afraid of letting someone down. And the more they give, the more people take. Not out of malice, but because the strong one makes it look so easy. At some point, strong people begin to experience identity fatigue, the exhaustion that comes from performing a version of yourself that no longer matches who you truly are. They're seen as stable, but inside they're struggling. They're seen as put together, but inside they feel lost. They're seen as confident, but inside they're full of self. They want to be soft, but people only accept them when they are strong. They want to be vulnerable, but people only listen when they are giving advice. And this mismatch creates emotional tension, the painful gap between who they are and who they're forced to be. Eventually, this tension becomes unbearable. People who are tired of being strong often enter a stage psychologists call quiet burnout. This is not loud exhaustion, it's the slow fading of energy, enthusiasm, and emotional availability. They're not angry, they're not overwhelmed, they're not dramatic. They just feel empty. They respond slower. They withdraw more. They stop initiating conversations. They lose interest in things they used to love. They become emotionally flat. They feel disconnected from their life. This quiet burnout is dangerous because it doesn't look like burnout. It looks like being okay. It looks like functioning. But inside, they feel like they're floating through life without anything to hold on to. A big part of this psychology is feeling unseen. The strong one is admired but not understood, loved but not emotionally noticed, needed but not nurtured. People compliment their resilience but forget to check on their well-being. People trust them with secrets but never offer them space to share their own. People assume they're okay because they've always appeared okay. And nothing is more painful than needing support but being perceived as someone who doesn't. And so, they begin to emotionally withdraw, not because they don't care, but because they're exhausted from caring alone. They stop expecting support because it's easier than being disappointed. They stop opening up because vulnerability feels foreign. They stop asking for help because the words get stuck in their throat. And slowly, quietly, they stop believing they deserve emotional care at all. But here is the truth, beneath all of this. Even the strongest people crave softness. Even the strongest people need rest. Even the strongest people want to be held. Even the strongest people break. Strength is not infinite. It is not a superpower. It is not a personality trait. It is a survival strategy. And even survival strategies have limits. The psychology of people who are tired of being strong isn't about weakness. It's about long-term emotional neglect, internalized responsibility, and unprocessed pain. These individuals don't want to stop being strong. They just want to stop being strong alone. They want connection, not dependence. Support, not rescue. Understanding, not pity. They want someone who sees past the calm expression. Someone who notices the quiet heaviness. Someone who listens when they say I'm okay, and gently asks, but how are you really? Because the strongest people don't need someone to save them. They just need someone who doesn't expect them to always save themselves. They need a place where they can finally exhale. A place where they can stop performing strength and simply be human. A place where they can lay down the armor they've worn for years. A place where they can rest without feeling guilty. A place where they can be soft without feeling unsafe. A place where they don't have to earn love through resilience. A place where their emotions are not minimized, dismissed, or ignored. The psychology of being tired of being strong is a reminder that emotional strength should be shared, not carried alone. And maybe, for the first time in their life, the strongest people need someone to look them in the eyes and say, you don't have to hold everything together anymore. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to be human. And you deserve the same softness you've given the world.